Hey everyone, in today's video, we are going to be talking budgeting. Now, if you missed my last video, I will link it down in the description box for you. That was all about how to be frugal and find DIY ways to solve your problems for free instead of going out and buying things to do that. I mentioned in my last video that I am aggressively saving this year and trying really hard to pay off some debt before the end of 2024. And in order to do that, we have to stick to a very strict budget and we need to be disciplined with how we are sticking to it. So in today's video, I hope I give you some motivation and some good ideas. There will also be a free download that you can find on my website, and I'll link all of that in the description box. And that will be a download of my Microsoft Excel spreadsheet that I use to keep track of our budgeting. It has all the categories set up for you, all the equations entered in, so it does all the totals for you. But I'll go over that in a little bit here. But before we get started into this video, I really want to thank and say hi to all of my new subscribers. My last video apparently was very popular and I got a ton of new subscribers since then. So in the last week and a half, if you are one of those people, hello and welcome, and I'm so happy to have you here. I have loved reading all of your sweet comments, and just has been such a blessing to hear from all of you. I tried to answer everybody. I hope I got to everybody. If not, it was unintentional. If I missed you, I apologize. But keep the comments coming. I love them. And if you do enjoy this content, feel free to share it with friends and tell people about my channel, and hopefully it'll help them too. So as I mentioned in today's video, I am going to walk you through exactly how I use a Microsoft Excel spreadsheet to keep track of all of my family's finances and everything that we spend in the month. And I'm going to walk you through that step by step right now. Let's get started. Hey guys, so this is the Microsoft Excel spreadsheet that I use to keep track of our family's budget. This is not our exact budget. I tried to make this a reasonable budget for the average family. Just try to pick out monthly expenses that would make sense for the average family here as an example for you. So what I want to do first is just kind of walk you through what all of these categories are and how this is set up so that you can use it. So you'll see up in the top, I have January 2024. What I do with my budget is I make one workbook for the entire year. So if you look down here at the bottom, you see all these tabs. I can click between January, February, March, April, and so on. I just do the entire year in one workbook, and then when it's a new year, I'll start a new workbook. So we're just going to look at January so I can show you how this is set up. Now, up at the top here, I have all of the income. So you're going to list all of your income for the month. I'm assuming you get paid twice a month, so you get one paycheck, two paychecks. This is the expected amount that you're expecting to take in your paychecks. The actual amount will be what the actual amount ends up being. So maybe you did some overtime, maybe you had some fees, maybe you have union dues come out, taxes, whatever. So the actual amount will go here when you do get paid so that you have an accurate record of what actually came in. Now down here is the total income. So let's just work through that section first. So let's say that your first paycheck was exactly as expected. It was $2,500. So you just type that in. And let's say maybe your second paycheck, you did some overtime. So let's say that was $2,600. You got a little bit extra there. Now I left a couple blank spaces because sometimes there would be extra income depending on the month. Like maybe it's December and you got some money for Christmas gifts, or maybe it's your birthday and you got some money for that. So let's just show you how to enter that. So let's say it's your birthday and you get, oh, I'm in the wrong section here. Click on that. Let's say it's your birthday. So you get birthday money. And when I enter something, I usually put the date in there with it too. So let's say it was January 20th. You got some birthday money. You weren't expecting it, so we're going to leave that category blank. And the actual amount of money you got was $50. So as you can see here, your total income for the month of January is $5,150. Now down here we have all of the expenses. Oh, and by the way, I have this set up so that anywhere that there is a total row here, I have it set up to do the math for you automatically. I typed an equation in there so that it will add everything above it and give you the total there. I did that, excuse me, in the monthly expenses as well. This will total it up for you, and annual expenses and so on. So I do have it set up to total everything for you so you don't have to do the math. Now going down to the expenses, most people have a mortgage or a rent payment if you're renting. So let's just say that that was the expected amount. That's usually a set amount. Now, when you're typing in your expenses, you need to make sure to put a negative sign in front of it. I have this whole category set up to be in accounting format. If you look up here, it's accounting format, which means it's going to convert it to a dollar amount. But when you're typing in an expense, you do have to put a minus sign in front of it to make sure that the computer knows that this is a negative amount. So we're going to do a minus 800. Hit enter, and that automatically converts it to dollars. And I'm just going to go through here quickly and just type in amounts for most of these things here. Okay, so if we look through our monthly expenses here, you see we have mortgage, cell phones, internet, life insurance, retirement contributions, Netflix, iCloud, dance tuition. That's just an example. Most kids, if you have kids, a lot of times they're in activities. So whatever activity they're in, basketball, soccer, whatever, you would put their amount of tuition there. Electric, gas, water, sewage, tithing. We'll get into that a little bit more in a little bit. And then I have these categories here that I skipped, and I'll go over that in a minute. And then you have transfer to savings and loan payment. So maybe one's a student loan payment, maybe you have a car payment, things like that. Whatever kind of loans or debts that you have, maybe it's a credit card payment that you need to make. That's what would go here. So this transfer to savings line here, this is important, and I'm going to talk to you about that at the end of this video. I'm going to just share some tips and tricks and some advice for how to make sure that you are maximizing your budget for your family. And so make sure you stick around till the end of the video so that you can hear, all of my tips and tricks for how to make this work properly. Now, these sections that I skipped here, as you can see, we have groceries, toiletries, clothing, housewares, other, and gasoline and pet expenses here. Now, if you don't have pets, obviously you skip that line, but we have lots of pets. We live on a farm, so we have all kinds of animals, but for the average person, that might be a dog or a cat or something like that. But so these categories, I didn't enter any values in here, and here's why. I have a separate column for each of those categories over here. Now, these are the categories that are flexible from month to month. So you don't have a set line item in your budget for groceries. It's not like every single month you spend the same amount of money on clothing, toiletries, gasoline. Those are expenses that can vary. And so what I do is I keep them separate, and it also helps me to see how much money I'm spending in each category so that I can readjust if I realize like, oh, hey, I'm kind of spending a lot of money on clothing or whatever. So I should really cut that back. I think we can do with less clothing, or just shop at the thrift store instead of going to the regular store. Things like that. So these are the areas where you have some control. Now, the way I have this set up is, again, at the bottom of every one of these columns is a total. I've typed in an equation so that everything that you add in here will automatically be totaled up for you and show at the bottom. And whatever this total is, it's going to automatically appear over here as well. So I've done all that setting up for you. So let's say, for example, you go to Walmart and get some groceries. So you're going to type in Walmart, type in the date. Let's say you went on January 2nd, and let's say you spent $50. Okay, so we're going to type that in. Next, you go to Aldi a few days later. So let's see, Aldi on the 5th, and you spent $70. Type that in. So I'm not going to go through the whole month. I'm just giving you an idea of how this works. So you see 50 plus 70 obviously is $120. It totals it up for you down there, and then it automatically enters it over here for you. So this is going to keep a running total of where you are. Now this is very important that you look at this before you go to the store. Okay, and this is something that I did not do well in previous years, but I am really focusing on this year. In order to stick to your budget, you have to know how much is left. So you need to know where you stand before you go to the grocery store so that you know how much money you have to spend. Now you see here that I have $800 a month in the grocery budget. So far we've spent $120. So I know that I have $680 left. Okay. So that's what I have to spend. However, if you look over here, you see this goal. Okay. So the goal is what I would like to be able to stick to for a budget. Now the 800 is more realistic, but my goal is to challenge myself to see if I can keep it under 600. So as you can see here, if you hit your goals here, you're going to save $200 here, $10 here, so that's $210. Let me just do this math quickly and then I'll get back to you. So in these categories, if I hit my goal amount and stay within the goal budget instead of the more realistic budget, I have an extra $335 every month that I can put towards debt, that I can put into savings, that I can use to give, that we can save up for a specific goal. Maybe that's our reward for doing a good job with the budget and we want to do something as a family and celebrate, and we can use the money for that. But it gives you something to work towards, so a real motivation to hit those goals when you know you can have hundreds of extra dollars every month if you can just stick to that. So again, I'm not going to go through entering every amount for every category here. You get the idea, but the same thing applies for all of these categories. And yes, I realize if you shop at Walmart or Aldi or places like that, you're probably buying food and toiletries and housewares and possibly even clothing all in the same place. So it does involve looking at your receipts and separating out what's what. So it does take extra time to do it that way, but I do think it is worth it because you have a much better understanding of where your money's going and where you can make adjustments to save more or get out of debt faster. The other category is just what it says. I mean, that's just for any other non-planned expenses that you may have. So the way that I keep track of this, of where I am for the month, because you don't want to wait until the end of the month to do this. Like I said, you want to keep a running total. I have a checklist here. So the places I'm checking to see what I've spent so far, I'm going to check my checking account to see what's come out of there. I'm going to check if you have 1 credit card, 2 credit cards, however many you have. Check those credit cards, log online, see what charges are on there, and then just other, if there's some other form of money coming out that you need to check on to see, where your money's going, then you have that here. So let's say that today is January 10th, okay? So I'm going to go through my checking account and record all of the expenses through today. And then here, since this is the 10th and the day's not over, I'm going to make myself a note that says that I have checked this and recorded everything that was in there through the 9th. Okay, so I make a little note that 1/9 was the last time that I have everything recorded. So the next time I open this up, I know where to start and I'm not backtracking. I can just look here and say, okay, everything through the 9th is recorded. I just need to start at January 10th and record what's gone on from there. So that's what I do with these. That's just a little checklist to keep track of the last date that I have everything up to date. Now these categories down here are expenses that are not necessarily something you're going to use every month, but something that you should be planning for. So if you own a car, you're going to have car repairs and you're going to need to get new tires every once in a while. Those are just things that are going to happen. You need maintenance, you need oil changes, you need transmission fluids, you need, all kinds of things that cars need, no matter how old they are. So these are categories that you want to definitely plan for. So I have this set up over here under annual expenses. Another annual expense would be car insurance, which is a huge expense for a lot of people, especially for us since we have a teenage driver. Our car insurance doubled when we added him to our insurance. So that's a huge expense, and you can't just assume that the money will be there when that bill comes in. So what you want to do is figure out your annual cost. Let's say that your car insurance is $2,000 a year. So if your insurance is $2,000 a year, that's about $167 a month. So you want to include that in your monthly budget. You don't want to get to the end of the year and then not be able to come up with the money to pay that bill. You want to be setting it aside every month. Set aside your $167 every single month. So at the end of the year, the money's already there and you don't have to worry about it. Same thing with car repairs. You never really know what the repairs are going to cost you, what's going to happen. So you just have to kind of estimate. And I would err on the side of caution, estimate you're going to have $600 a year in car repairs every year. Hopefully you won't. And hopefully that money will just be there in case you have a more expensive repair 2 years from now. But you want to just try to be realistic and try to overestimate how much you're going to need, because that's better than underestimating and then finding yourself in a bad position when you need the money and don't have it. So same thing with replacing your tires. You're going to estimate the annual cost and then break it down monthly. So when you add these three costs together here, you get $242 a month. And so you want to make that a line item in your expenses. You want that $242 a month to come out of your monthly budget and go into a savings account so that the money's there when you need it. So I have that down here. The transfer to savings, every month have an automatic transfer set up that money, that amount of money goes from your checking account into a savings account automatically so that you are not left with a bill that you can't pay. So in addition to that, I would recommend getting a high yield savings account. And I will talk to you more about that at the end of the video, but I highly recommend using a high yield savings account instead of just a regular savings account. Again, more info on that later. Okay, so now we've gotten to the end of the month. Now, obviously, all of these expenses up here were not entered in yet, which is why it looks like you have so much money left over at the end of the month. You're obviously not going to have all that. So, you know what? Why don't I just go in here and enter some values so that we can look at a more realistic expectation here. Okay, so we have all of this stuff filled in now. And if you look down here at the bottom, you only expected to have an extra $50 at the end of the month, but you did a really good job staying under budget in these categories. So you have $601.52 left over at the end of the month. That's amazing. So here's what you want to do. Figure out what your highest priorities are. Do you have a loan that you need to pay off? Do you have debt that you need to pay off? I would recommend taking your highest interest rate and paying that down first. Get rid of the high interest rates because they're costing you every single month. So if you have a loan or a debt that you need to pay off, do that first. Use this $600 and put that all on the highest interest rate and get rid of it as fast as possible. If you are debt-free, congratulations and good job. But also, if you're debt-free, you can put this into savings. So you can build up your savings account that way. The other thing you could do with it is you can carry it over. So maybe you underspent on your grocery budget this month. You were just eating out of the pantry a ton and using up food that you already had. But that might mean that you have to replace all that stuff next month. So you could carry this over into the next month if you need to add that to next month's grocery budget to balance things out. So you have some options with what to do, but obviously having extra money at the end of the month is the goal, and so that you can save up for future projects. Giving is an amazing way to spend that money. Being able to have the money to give to people in need, to keeping a fund for that, that's also a great idea. Now, the last thing on this page I want to show you is how to carry over from month to month. So as we talked about, this is January, so I'm just assuming your starting balance is 0 here, okay? But every month you're adding $50 to your car repair fund and $25 to your tires fund. So at the end of the month in January, you have 50 and 25 here. When you move into February, just click on that tab. So you're starting out the month of February with $50 already there. So that gives you $100 now by the end of February. And you're starting out this month with $25 already there. So now you have 50 in that account, and that is how you're going to keep track of whether or not you were accurate with estimating your expenses for car repairs and tires. When it gets to the point in the year where you have to make the car repairs or you need to buy the new tires, you're going to see, did I have enough money in my account at that point in the year to be able to pay for it without borrowing from myself? And if you did, then great. That's a great budget to keep. If you did not have enough, then you're going to have to set aside more money per month in these categories to be able to cover it in the future. So this is just a really great way to keep track of where your money is going, what categories you're spending the most in, and having all of your monthly expenses like this written out is a great way to see where your money's going, because sometimes you forget about those automatic bills, like the bills that just come out automatically, they're on auto pay, and you forget about the Netflix and the iCloud and the things that, they're smaller amounts, so you don't necessarily notice them coming out if you're not really paying attention to every single transaction. And so maybe you realize, oh, well, maybe I don't need 3 streaming services all at once. Like maybe I can just do Netflix and then watch what I want and then cancel that and start another one. So I'm not spending all this money on all these different streaming services. That would save me maybe $30 a month, things like that. So I hope that you guys find this worksheet helpful. And now what I'm going to do for you is I'm putting a link down in the description box to my blog, and in the blog post that link will take you to, there is a downloadable version of this exact spreadsheet. So you can actually download this and you will be able to edit it and put in your expenses, your numbers. This is completely customizable for you. Just realize like these categories here that have their own columns, you want to use these columns to fill them in, because if you type over what I have in this category, it's going to erase the equation that I put in there that automatically puts those numbers in for you. So that's the only thing. But again, if you have questions with how to use an Excel spreadsheet, the best thing you could do is actually just look for tutorial videos online, because this is not my area of expertise. I did figure out how to set this all up, but I am not the person to explain it. I am very technologically challenged, and if you knew how many hours it took me to figure out how to put a downloadable family budget on my blog for you, you would understand why I am not the person to teach you how to set this up. But anyways, there are tons of tutorials online you could look for if you wanted to make big changes to this or set up your own version of it. But I thought that just having this already set up and done for you might be helpful for you and just give you an idea of how to keep track of things. So like I said, I do have some tips and tricks for you. Stick around. I'm going to switch over to that video now. Hey guys, thanks for sticking around to the end of the video. As promised, I have 10 keys to success to help you be able to stick to this budget, to help you succeed as you're trying to get out of debt, build up your savings, or whatever your financial goals are. These are the 10 tips that I have for you. Tip number 1. Keep a buffer in your checking account of at least 1 full month's of expenses. Now, what I mean by keeping a buffer is that, let's say your monthly expenses are $2,000 a month. you're going to have $2,000 a month in your account that you don't rely on, that you don't count as part of your budget. You're just going to pretend it's not there and pretend you're at a zero balance without that $2,000. What that will do for you is, as your monthly bills come in, you don't have to wait until payday to pay them. You don't have to wait until payday to buy food for your family. You're always going to have all of those expenses covered the month before you have to earn the money for the next month. And so that will help a lot with staying out of getting into trouble with credit card debt or getting behind on your bills because you have to wait until payday to pay them. So it's definitely very important to do that. Tip number 2. If you are trying to pay off debt or build up your savings, you need to enter those into your monthly budget as expenses, like any other expense. That is a line item that is non-negotiable. The temptation is always, well, that's extra money. You know, the savings that I'm building up, that's extra. So if I need to buy something with it, that's okay. I'll just pull from that. No, don't do that. Do not do that. That is sabotage to your budget. So treat it like any other bill that you need to put whatever dollar amount you decide that goes automatically into your savings account. And what I do is I actually have an automatic debit set up for my checking account that automatically sends that money over. So I know I can't touch it. It's gone into our savings, and that's the end of it. Same thing if you're using it to pay off a loan. Number 3, make giving a priority. Now, this sounds really backwards. You're saying, I'm trying to save money. I'm trying to build up my savings. I'm trying to pay off my debt. Why would I give away my money to other people when my family needs it, right? Well, that's not the way God works. In God's economy, it doesn't make any logical sense. You give away money and more money comes in. And you see that again and again and again. And if you were just willing to trust God with your finances and give, you will see how he blesses you. And we have experienced this so many times in our lives personally that this year we've actually decided to increase our giving, just stepping out in faith. And we've already seen the rewards of that. Now, obviously, that's not the reason that you give. You don't give because you want to get something back. But it's amazing how things just change when you do start to give. And we are not meant to be on this planet to hoard resources for ourselves and to just make ourselves comfortable. We're meant to be a funnel that resources flow through, that we can give to other people, that we can bless other people with the things that we've been blessed with. The Bible says, if you are faithful with the little things, I will trust you with the bigger things. And that's not a direct quote, that's a paraphrase because I don't know the exact wording there, but that's basically what it says is you need to be trustworthy with the small things to be trusted with more. And so by showing God that you trust him with your finances and giving to people who are in need, you will see the blessings of that in your own life. Tip number 4, I highly recommend opening a high yield savings account. The standard savings accounts that you get from a bank are worthless. I mean, you might make like 11 cents in interest for the entire year. It's so stupid. Don't put your money there. It's a waste of money. I'm sorry if you work for a bank, but you know, it's a horrible place to put your money if you're trying to save. So we have a high yield savings account. Right now, ours is getting about 4.35% APR, which is like 1,000 times higher than any bank savings account. You can look through, different financial institutions, some credit cards offer them, things like that. I'm not going to get into that with you, but it is a much, much better place to put your money. There are a limited number of restrictions on it, but I haven't found it to be restrictive for what we need. I know there are limits to like how many times a month you can make a withdrawal, but it's more than we need. And when you do need to get the money out, sometimes it can take 2 to 3 business days to transfer. So those are the only downfalls, but if you know a couple days ahead of time that you have a bill coming up, you can transfer the money and it'll be there when you need it. So, or even if you have to put something on a credit card in the immediate, in 3 days, you can pay that credit card off because you can take the money out of your savings. But it gets so much better of an interest rate in a high yield savings account. And it still stays very liquid, so you can get to it quickly if you need it. So I definitely recommend getting a high yield savings account. Tip number 5, if you fall behind in keeping track of your budget, what I mean by that is you haven't been faithful with filling in all of your expenses throughout the month, you get really far behind, maybe you're like 3 months behind. Do not try to start from the place where you left off and try to play catch up, because you won't get there. Okay. Ask me how I know. I have definitely failed to fill this in years past where 6 months had gone by since the last time I filled it in. That is not helpful. You need to fill it in regularly, because if you don't know where you stand for the month, then there's no point in having a budget at all. So it's not helpful to do that. However, if life happens and you get far behind, just start from the month that you're in and work your way forwards from there. Do not try to play catch up, because like I said, you will never catch up, and then you'll just end up giving up on the budget altogether. So tip number 6, this kind of goes along with what I was just saying in the last tip, where you need to know what's in your budget regularly. So if you have a regular grocery shopping day, let's say you go shopping every Saturday for your groceries, then every Friday, sit down and fill in all your budget, your spreadsheet with all the expenses that have gone out so far. Because if you don't know how much money is left in your budget before you go to the store, that's not helpful. It's not going to help you at all. If you just go to the store, buy whatever you want, and then come home and enter it later and go, oh, I overspent, whoops, that's not helpful. That is not the way to stick to a budget. You have to know what you have to spend before you spend the money. So make sure you're keeping up with it. Make sure you bring it up to date before you go to the store, before you buy what you're looking to buy. Number 7, have an emergency fund so that you do not get derailed by unexpected expenses. Things come up, life happens. We all know this. You have to expect that there will be unexpected expenses, which sounds like an oxymoron because you're expecting the unexpected, but that's how life works. We all know it. So plan for that. Have an emergency fund. If you follow Dave Ramsey, he's a financial guru that a lot of people know about. He recommends having an emergency fund of at least $1,000, and that should hopefully cover any major expenses that come up that you weren't planning. But then if you do end up spending it, of course, you have to resave in that category, build it back up so that you have another one. Now, he says $1,000. I think personally, it really depends on what your monthly budget is. Really depends on things like how big and expensive is your house? How many cars do you own? Things like that. Because if you have multiple vehicles and they all break down at once, you're going to spend more than $1,000 likely. If you have a huge mansion and the electric goes, that's more than $1,000 expense. So you have to really figure it out based on what your property level is, like how much stuff you own, how expensive the things that you own are, things like that. So figure out for yourself what a good emergency fund would be and set that aside. But it is definitely crucial to have one so that you don't end up in credit card debt. Number 8, be strict with yourself. Be strict with this budget, because if you don't stick to it, there's no point in having one. You will not succeed if you don't stick to it. Just yesterday, I went grocery shopping with my 2 daughters. They're 15 and 12. And we were at the store. I told them, this is how much money we have to spend, and we're not going over that amount. So as we were going through the store, I had my youngest daughter totaling things up in her head as we went. She kept track of where we were. Every time we put something in the cart, she added it up and kept track. And we went through the store, and when they were looking at certain things, they wanted to buy certain things. They said, well, that's going to put us over budget. So what can we put back? Do you want to put something else back? Do you want to get a smaller amount of this thing? And, so we had to figure that out. There was no, oh, well, let's just get whatever we want and pay for it later. It was, this is the budget. This is what we have, and this is what we're going to spend. So some creative solutions that we came up with were, we wanted to buy some dip to go with the potato chips that we got that were on sale. And again, don't start with me. I know buying potato chips when you're trying to stick on a budget is kind of dumb. You shouldn't be buying cookies and chips and snacks. You should buy real food. But they were on sale. It was a very good sale price. So we got the chips because my family really likes to have chips and dips when they watch movies. It's a nice movie snack for them. So anyways, We bought the chips, but we didn't have enough money in the budget for the dip. So what I said was, you know what? We have sour cream at home. I can just make dip. I'll make sour cream and onion dip. We have seasoning, we have sour cream. We don't need to buy the dip. And if we're not buying the dip, now we can afford that cheese that you wanted. So let's go back and get the cheese. So you really have to stick to the budget, be strict. And I was pretty impressed that my girls were on board. Like, they understand. They're like, we're trying to pay off debt. We have goals and we're going to stick to it. And I was very proud of them, but that was a nice teachable moment for them too, to help them in their adulthood. Tip number 9 is to know why you are sticking to a budget. You need to have a goal, because if you're doing this and all you think about is how restrictive this is and how hard it is, and it feels like you're just punishing yourself, that's not going to be helpful for you to help you stick to the budget. But if you have goals, measurable goals, such as with my family, there is one certain loan that we're trying to pay off before the end of 2024. And looking at that goal, looking at this is how much money is left on this loan. If we put this amount of money towards it every single month, we can have it paid off by the end of December, and we will be out of that loan completely. And that is a measurable goal. That is something we're looking forward to, something that will give us more cash flow throughout the month, every month. And so have a goal. Maybe your goal is, I want to save up to get a new car. I want to pay cash for a car instead of having to take out a loan and get slammed with interest by buying this car, So maybe that's your goal. Maybe your goal is you want to go on vacation this year. Save up for something fun. I mean, let's make it fun. Why not? If you have the room in your budget, save up for a vacation. Save up for something that you really want to do. Save up for a new wardrobe if that's your thing. But know what your goals are so that you have something fun to work towards, something that you're looking forward to, and a reason for doing what you're doing. And finally, my last tip for you, tip number 10, would be to get Dave Ramsey's book, The Total Money Makeover. I have been frugal my entire life. That's just kind of who I am. But I still need to be remotivated sometimes. And sometimes, you just need a kick in the butt. And Dave Ramsey's great at that. Now, for me, I rented his book from the library. You can do that if you're, again, trying to save money. You can probably find it at your local library for free. If you want to have your own copy so you have it for reference, you can take notes in it. I believe he also has a workbook that goes along with that too. I will link the Amazon link in the description box to those books if you're interested. But again, if you're trying to save money and you don't want to buy them, the local library probably has them. So I would definitely check out his book. I listened to it as an audiobook, and it was only, I think, about 4 hours long. It's not a very long read, but it's a very helpful and encouraging and motivating read. So he also goes into a lot more detail about different ways to get out of debt and strategies and things to use. All right, guys. Well, I have loved chatting with you today. I hope that you found this helpful. I hope that you found it motivating. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them down in the comments, and I will try to get to all of your questions. I do have plans for a lot more content coming out soon. It's just a matter of how much time I have to film versus getting things done really quickly, because it does take a lot longer to film what you're doing than it does to just do it. So again, I always put my family first. If my family needs my time, they get my time, not you guys. I apologize for that, but sorry, not sorry. They're my kids. They're my husband. So they come first. And if I have time to film what I'm doing for you, I will. But hopefully I'll get that done. I'm planning to do some meal prep videos. I'm planning to do a greenhouse clean out and help you guys out. I know not everybody has a greenhouse, so give you guys some tips on how to try to create one for free. Like, I love the free DIY thing. I love being frugal. I have some other frugal tips for gardening, things like that. So hopefully I will have time to film those, but make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss them. And I will see you in the next one. Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.